It was the sheets. They smelled like sweat and detergent and her skin. Once, that aroma comforted me. Now it makes my stomach tighten. The memory is rancid, rotting in my mind. I shut my eyes and picture the sun slicing through bedroom curtains, illuminating tangled sheets, unmade pillows, and the shadow of her bare shoulder moving gently. But it wasn't me beside her. That memory, once something that brought me warmth, is now a filthy rag on the floor of my consciousness. I can't shake it. I couldn't breathe that morning. The walls pressed in. I got up, dressed in the same stale clothes I wore the day before, and found myself pacing in the hallway. My heart was hammering too loud. The doorknob to our bedroom looked bent somehow, like the metal had softened under heat, and the carpet under my feet felt damp. I stood there in the corridor, staring at the bedroom door, thinking, I should open it. I should see. But I already knew. My voice came out in a whisper. Laura. Nothing. I pushed the door open, softly, but it felt heavier than any door I'd handled in my life. Inside, the curtains were drawn, letting only slivers of morning light streak across the bed. I saw her figure. Then I saw a second shape. Broad shoulders, dark hair. My mind fluttered between panic and anger, but my body went rigid. His hand was on her back. I heard a small sound from her, half asleep or half pleased. I couldn't tell. It was intimate, more intimate than I'd ever heard from her in years. It sliced the air between us like a wire ready to snap. I made no noise, just stood there, a specter in the half-light. I saw the curve of her legs tangled with his, that gentle motion of breathing in sync. The damned quilt, our anniversary gift from her mother, looked twisted around them like a serpent's coil. I didn't speak. My throat felt stuffed with cotton, my limbs numb. My father's memory shot through me. The betrayal I believed he'd committed decades ago. The times I seethed, thinking he'd run off, left me and Mom behind. And now the circle repeated, except I was the one left behind. My teeth clenched so hard my jaw cramped. Then, a single tear welled up in my left eye, but I blinked it away. Hard. I closed the door as quietly as I'd opened it. Let them sleep in that obscene hush. Let them keep each other warm. My heart threatened to tear out of my chest. I wanted to smash the door with my bare fists or fling it open, drag him out, and watch him scramble. But I couldn't move. In the kitchen, the kettle whistled. My daughter's voice floated from her bedroom. She was chatting with a friend on her phone. Normalcy. The rest of the house existed in a morning routine, while the bedroom was soaked in betrayal. I exhaled, forced myself to do it slowly. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against the counter. The stove clock blinked 7-8. The kettle hissed until it clicked off by itself. She'd left it on last night, probably. That's what she did whenever she stayed up too late, lost in her own thoughts or maybe talking to him. My stomach churned with black humor. So you can't bother to remember the kettle, but you remember to invite him to our bed. My palms were damp, so I wiped them on my jeans. I heard the floor creak behind me. A presence. I expected her. Instead, it was my daughter peeking around the corner, bright eyes at half-mast. A wave of guilt punched me in the gut. She didn't need to see this. You okay, Dad? She asked. Her voice was soft, still clinging to the dreams of a teenage girl. I forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just didn't sleep well. She yawned, wandered toward the fridge, rummaging for milk. The morning hush settled around us both. In the back of my mind, I felt something unravel. I needed to keep it together. I thought about leaving right then, but I remembered the conversation I overheard from her last week, that single phrase that had changed everything. Papa always wanted you back. She had been talking to her friend, or maybe to her mother. But she said Papa, referencing my father. And that didn't compute, because I grew up believing the man never wanted anything to do with us. He'd abandoned me, left me to figure out the world alone. But apparently, that was a lie. My father had tried to return. He wasn't a deserter. He was a dead man. They'd kept it from me. I couldn't reconcile that betrayal. Now, layered on top of that pain, I discovered my wife had brought another man into our bed. I grit my teeth so tight I thought I'd break a molar. Then I said to my daughter, calmly, "I'm stepping out for a moment." Forgot something in the car. Outside, the sun glinted off puddles in the driveway. Last night's rain had been heavy. I remembered standing in it, my shoulders soaked. No reason to stand there except it felt like I needed to wash off 30 years of lies. The mailbox still dripped with leftover raindrops. I flicked one away. Then I just stood, looking at the front door. I heard the hush of tires rolling down the street. Neighbors heading to work. Everything so normal. Except my heart hammered. My father's face, which I hardly remembered, flashed through my thoughts. The mustache. The calloused hands. I used to think I hated him for running out. Now I had just felt hollow. I walked back in. My daughter was gone to her room, door closed. The corridor lay silent. I half expected him to walk out, buttoning up his shirt, but the bedroom door remained shut. Good. Let them figure out how to handle the stench of betrayal. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face. The mirror showed me a pale, sleep-deprived man with eyes that had seen too much. "You worthless bastard," I muttered to the reflection. Then a flicker of black humor, but not worthless enough to avoid paying the mortgage. I toweled off, rubbed the tension from my neck, and left the house without a word. In the days that followed, I moved through a fog. For a time, I slept on the living room couch, ignoring Laura's repeated attempts to talk. She cornered me once in the kitchen. "Jim, we need to." "Need to what?" I cut her off. She looked stricken. The guilt in her eyes radiated a kind of dull glow, like a lamp on its last flicker. "Let me explain." "You can't." I said it quietly, but it must have been like a knife. "Because I saw you with him." She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried. He just. I pressed my fingers to my temple. "No, I'm not in the mood for your excuses. I'm too exhausted." Her eyes darted toward the hallway, where our daughter's bedroom door stood closed. She didn't want to raise her voice, didn't want a scene. I almost laughed. I murmured, "It's fine. We'll handle it," and walked away. That evening, I found her phone on the kitchen island. A text popped up, "Daniel." My chest clenched. I snatched the phone, turned it over. A single message glowed. "Hey, how are you?" "I'm worried." I stared at the name for a moment. Daniel Brooks, my wife's lover. Possibly younger than her, or around her age. Possibly with a better job, a bigger sense of adventure. Possibly with an empty bed that she found more appealing. I set the phone down. I started having nightmares about my father. In them, he stood in the shadows, calling me. But I couldn't see his face. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, my mind spinning. One night, I wandered into the kitchen around midnight, found my daughter rummaging the pantry for a snack. She flicked on a small lamp by the counter. The dim bulb cast her shadow huge on the wall, making her look older than she was. She said softly, "Dad, can we talk?" I grunted, opening the fridge. "Sure." She grabbed an apple, bit into it, her gaze sliding from me to the floor. "I know something's going on, but Mom and we just don't talk like we used to. She's busy or tired. And you're..." She paused, searching for words. "Different." A flash of anger burned my throat, but it wasn't directed at her. My daughter was innocent. I forced a tight smile. "Things are complicated." She frowned. "Is it about Grandpa? I heard you two talking the other day. Something about him wanting you back. Was that real? Because Mom said Grandpa died. She never said he was gone by choice." I swallowed. "He died. But I spent my whole life thinking he left. That's the difference." Her eyes widened. "You didn't know he died?" I shook my head. She set her apple down, put her hand on my arm. "I'm sorry. I don't understand why Mom wouldn't tell you." I exhaled. Me neither. But let's not worry. Go to bed. She nodded, drifting away with that uncertain, sympathetic glance. The lamp kept humming. In the half-dark, I stared at the spot where my wife had once stood in her bathrobe, telling me everything would be okay if we just believed. Now that memory was a ghost, haunting the corners of my mind. The next day, I decided I needed clarity. I took a day off work and ventured to the local records office downtown, a grimy building with fluorescent lights that flickered. I asked for my father's death certificate. I gave them his name, Robert Carter. They found it in a box of old files. The date, the year I turned 7. The cause, a car accident in Mississippi. The moment I saw it, my vision blurred. He hadn't left me. He died. That was the truth. My mother lied. Or maybe she shielded me from it for reasons I still couldn't fathom. But then how did Laura know? Why didn't she tell me earlier? I clenched my jaw so hard it cramped. My father's last breath was on some lonely road while I was a clueless boy, waiting for him to come home. I stepped outside, the midday sun glaring. A wave of sick humor rolled over me. I've spent my life hating a ghost. I almost laughed out loud. Pedestrians gave me odd looks as I walked to my car. When I got home, I found Laura in the kitchen again, as if that was our battlefield. She stood by the sink, arms folded, eyes rimmed with faint red, maybe tears, maybe just fatigue. She spoke first, voice trembling. "You left early this morning." I didn't answer. I set the death certificate on the counter. Explaining. She glanced at the paper, recognized my father's name. Her face paled. My voice was low, but it cut. "You told me. Both you and my mother told me. He abandoned us. All this time, you knew he was dead. Why would you keep that from me?" She ran her fingertips over the edge of the paper, carefully, as if it might burn. "I only found out after we married. Your mother told me. She said you'd never handle it well, that you'd create illusions or let it consume you. She asked me to keep it quiet. I didn't want to, but, well, I was naive. We were so young then." I swallowed the fury rising in my throat. "You were naive for 20 years. She made a strangled sound. "Jim, I'm sorry. I tried to tell you once, years ago, but you were so angry about him. I thought it was safer to let you believe what you wanted, but it was a stupid decision. I'm so sorry." I stared at her, searching for the woman I once knew. My mind whirled with cynicism. "And your solution to a complicated marriage was to bring another man to our bed." Her cheeks flushed. She dropped her gaze. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You know what's funny? I believed I was the only one living with a lie. Turns out we're both drowning in secrets." She murmured. "I was lonely. Lonely in the arms of Daniel Brooks." "Right." She flinched. "Yes." I pressed my lips together, said nothing else, then walked away to the living room. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor like hammer strikes. That evening, I waited. I sat in the dark, the only light a small lamp by the couch, which flickered whenever the AC kicked on. The reflection glowed across the TV screen, turning it into a mirror with a faint golden sheen. She eventually came to me, phone in hand. "Daniel wants to talk," she said quietly. I stared at my reflection in the TV. My eyes looked hollow, cheeks gaunt. "When and where?" She hesitated. "He asked if you'd meet him. He feels bad." Black humor twisted in my stomach. "He feels bad. Great. That'll fix everything." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "Sure. I'll meet him." She blinked. "You will?" "Yeah. Tell him to meet me at the Candlewood Motel on Highway 10 tomorrow night. Room 206. He can rent it. I'll pay him back. That's where you two go, right?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. I felt satisfied in a cruel, twisted way. I didn't raise my voice, but I saw the impact in her eyes. She looked down, typed a message. "Fine," she said softly. "I'll tell him." Then she left me alone with the lamp. The next day, I pulled into the Candlewoods parking lot, one of those cheap motels with a flickering neon sign, the kind of place travelers crash for a night. The nighttime sky glowed an electric purple. The overhead lamps in the lot created pools of orange light on the asphalt. The place smelled of damp concrete and stale smoke. I saw Daniel standing by the second-floor railing, checking his phone. He wore a dark jacket, hair neatly styled. He looked younger in that moment, uncertain. Maybe I seemed older. He caught sight of me, raised a hand in a half-salute. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier. My breath came ragged, but I stuffed my emotions deep, replaced them with something colder. When I reached him, the tension in the air was tangible. He spoke first, softly. "Thanks for meeting me." I nodded. "Open the room." He slid a key card into the door. Room 206. Inside, there was a single lamp on the nightstand, giving off a weak yellowish glow. The bed looked clean but cheap, a bland floral print on the comforter. One window with heavy drapes faced the highway. He shut the door behind me. We both stood awkwardly, like two boxers sizing each other up. My fists tightened. 1,000 images flashed in my mind. Him in bed with my wife. Him whispering something in her ear. Her smiling at him the way she used to smile at me. I wanted to break his face. Instead, I took a seat on the edge of the bed. Daniel cleared his throat. I never meant for this to happen. Laura and I cut him off, quiet as a razor. "Is that the line you feed to every married woman?" He shook his head. "No, I've never done anything like this. I swear." I observed him. He seemed sincere, nervous, even. His brow glistened with sweat. "So I do it now. With her." He sighed, rubbed his neck. "It started at a work event a few months ago. I was consulting for her nonprofit, and we got to talking. She seemed lonely. I was lonely. It escalated." He looked away. "This isn't who I am." I gave a low laugh. "Well, it's who you are to me." Silence. He swallowed. "I'm sorry. That probably doesn't mean much." "No, it doesn't." I stood, walked toward the window. The highway lights streamed in faint lines. The reflection of the lamp glinted off the glass. My shadow seemed bigger than me. "You got anything else to say?" He opened his mouth, paused, then said, "Laura told me about your father's situation. I think she felt trapped, carrying those lies. Maybe if she hadn't." I whirled around, anger igniting like a flash. "Don't you dare talk about my father." He raised his hands, palms out. I'm sorry, okay? She's a good woman, but she was hurting. I never intended to break your family apart." My face twisted in a sneer. "That's the problem with people like you. You never think past your own desires." He took a step back, pressed up against the dresser. I noticed a tremor in his hands. Good. Let him feel fear. I approached, close enough to see the reflection of my eyes in his. In that moment, I wasn't sure what I was capable of. He stammered, If you need me to stay away, I will. I already told Laura I can't see her anymore." I inhaled, slow, controlling the urge to lash out. Then, in a level tone, I said, "You're going to vanish from her life." He nodded. "Yes. And from mine." "Understood." He gave a quick nod again, relief flickering in his eyes. I snorted. "You think it's that simple, huh?" He swallowed hard. "Look, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to make this right." Black humor rose in me like bile. "To make it right. Maybe you can bring my father back from the dead, or roll back time so I never see you two in my bed." Daniel had no response. His shoulders sagged. I turned, grabbed the door handle. "We're done." He whispered, "I'm sorry." I left him there, the lamp casting a sickly yellow glow, making him look smaller. Outside, the parking lot was cold. Clouds drifted over the moon, and the overhead lamps buzzed. My breath came fast. But I kept walking to my car, hands clenched. I sat behind the wheel, eyes on the steering wheel for a moment. A wry grin pulled at my lips. The bastard apologized. Now what? Does that fix anything? Does that resurrect trust? No. The world doesn't spin in reverse. I turned the ignition, and the engine rumbled to life. The radio played some low classic rock track. My father used to hum that kind of tune. The memory burned. I had grown up listening to those songs alone, thinking maybe I could reach him if I followed the melody. Instead, I'd been fed a lie about his desertion. My mother's lie. My wife's lie. I let out a mirthless chuckle. Then I drove home. When I got there, the house was dark, except for a single lamp in the living room window. I entered quietly. Laura was awake, curled up in an armchair, her knees drawn to her chest, still in her work clothes. "You saw him," she said softly. I nodded, removed my jacket. "Yes." She licked her lips. "I'm sorry for everything." I eyed her. Her expression was drenched in sorrow, maybe regret. But the time for pity was long gone. Without any real feeling, I said, "He won't bother you again." Her eyes flickered. "So that's it." I didn't answer. I walked down the hall, leaving her in the glow of that single lamp, a silhouette of a wife who'd made a choice she couldn't unmake. Days turned into weeks. The house was quiet. She slept in the bedroom. I stayed on the couch or sometimes in the guest room. We communicated in tense, clipped phrases, mostly about practical matters: dinner, groceries, bills, our daughter's schedule. My mother called once, but I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Jim, we need to talk about your father." I deleted it. In the tension, I found a strange sense of purpose. I sorted through old boxes in the attic, looking for any trace of my father. There were photos from when I was a baby, him holding me. Then, abruptly, the photos stopped. Must have been right before the accident. I found a few letters in a dusty shoebox, written in shaky penmanship. They were unsent. My mother must have hidden them. One read, "Dear Jim, I'm coming back soon as I get the job situation settled. Don't you worry, son." My mother had lied to me. She wanted me to think he walked away. The anger simmered. I pictured her face, always stern, telling me as a kid, "Your father left us. That's all." Then I pictured Laura, telling me the same. One night, rain battered the windows again. Everyone was asleep, or so I thought. When I felt a presence behind me in the hallway, it was Laura, eyes shadowed. She spoke in a near whisper. "Jim, I know you hate me, but can we at least try to talk?" I let out a breath, turned to face her. The overhead light in the hall flickered, painting her features in half-shadows. "What's left to talk about?" She stepped closer, arms crossed over her chest. "Everything. Your father. My betrayal. Us." I stared past her, down the corridor, imagining the bedroom door, picturing Daniel in our bed. My voice came out low. "Fine." We went into the kitchen. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. She offered me tea, but my throat felt too tight for warmth. I shook my head. She began. "I started seeing Daniel a few months ago. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some revenge. I was just alone. You shut me out after you found that half-truth about your dad. And I was scared. I felt guilty for not telling you." She swallowed, tears shining. "But that's not an excuse. I hurt you. I get that." I leaned on the counter, arms tense. "So what do you want me to do with that confession?" She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I just want you to know that despite everything, I still love you. And I wish I'd done 1,000 things differently." A hollow laugh bubbled up. "Funny. I used to wish my father had done things differently too. Turns out he died trying to come back." She winced. "I'm sorry." I locked eyes with her. "Apologies don't mend what you broke." She was silent, tears dripping. I walked out, leaving her alone under the harsh kitchen light. After that, I knew I couldn't stay in limbo forever. The betrayal stung too deep. The father lie, the affair, my entire foundation was crumbling. Black humor had become my lifeline, letting me joke cynically about everything that once mattered. But I was also numb with acceptance. The marriage we once had was gone, replaced by something fragile. I started planning. One afternoon, I asked my daughter to spend a weekend at her friend's house. She agreed, though she gave me a questioning look. She must have sensed the tension, or maybe she overheard more than I realized. But I smiled and told her it'd be better for her to get away from the gloom here. She nodded. Laura was at work when I packed a bag with clothes and important documents. I placed them in the trunk of my car. Then I waited for her to return. She came through the door, dropped her purse on the table. Jim. I stood in the living room, arms folded. The shadows of the late afternoon sun stretched across the floor in diagonal lines, like bars of a cage. She frowned. Where's our daughter? Staying with a friend. For the weekend. She bit her lip, glancing at my car keys in my hand. You going somewhere? I didn't answer right away. Then I said softly, we need to end this. Her face fell. End. What? I flicked my eyes around the room, at the photographs on the walls. Our wedding day, the newborn photos of our daughter, the shot of us at some scenic overlook in the mountains. Lies, illusions, truths, or fleeting moments of genuine happiness. I couldn't decide. I turned back to her. All of it. The marriage, the secrets. I'm done. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, you're leaving. I felt something hot in my chest. Oh, I'm leaving, but I'm not walking out quietly. We're going to have a real conversation. One that ends with finality. She hesitated, stepping closer. Jim. I raised a hand. My voice was controlled, but the anger simmered just beneath. Don't. Let me speak. She nodded. I stepped forward until we were face to face. I could see the mascara smudges under her eyes, the faint lines of worry on her forehead. You lied to me about my father. You watched me torture myself for years, blaming a man who was dead, a man who wanted to come back. Then you climbed into bed with Daniel. Maybe I wasn't there for you. Maybe I withdrew. But you chose the worst possible solution. Tears threatened, but she held them back. I know. I continued, voice low. Now, I'll handle the paperwork for a divorce. I'll handle moving out. But I won't be carrying your guilt. That belongs to you. She crumpled, sinking onto the couch. Her shoulders trembled. I stared at her, a flicker of empathy mixing with cold fury. Then, in a moment of black humor, I said, Congrats. You're free to chase him if you want. She looked up, eyes red. I don't want him. I want you. I shook my head, a short laugh escaping my throat. That's not an option anymore. I didn't slam the door or yell curses when I left. My footsteps on the porch were steady, the evening air thick and muggy. I set my bag in the trunk, closed it gently. The last of the sun's rays caught the reflection of my face in the side mirror. I looked older, calmer, but with a strange emptiness. I drove a few miles to a small motel on the outskirts of town. I checked in, stood under a dim lamp in the corridor, the hum of an old vending machine in my ears. I realized how quiet the world can get when you finally set down your burden. That night, I dreamt of my father again. Only this time, he wasn't calling for me in the shadows. He stood in broad daylight, smiling faintly, arms open. I didn't move to embrace him. I just stared. Then I woke up, blinking in the dark motel room, the air conditioner rattling like a final cough from an old man. I felt no tears, no heartbreak, just an odd acceptance. The next day, I visited my mother. I pounded on her door until she opened. She was older now, hair gone gray, posture stooped. But her eyes still held that same steely caution. I showed her the death certificate. You lied to me. She didn't deny it. She stared at the paper, lips pressed thin. I demanded, "Why?" She sighed, stepping aside to let me in. The house smelled of old books and lemon cleaner. "I was afraid you'd do something reckless. You idolized him so much. If you found out he died, you'd try to follow his footsteps, run off to some dangerous job. Who knows?" I barked a laugh, short and bitter. "So you thought telling me he'd abandoned us was kinder?" She sank into an armchair. "You were 7. Your father died in a crash, drunk behind the wheel. I was angry at him. I felt betrayed. I told myself it was better if you thought he was worthless than to think he died a drunk. It was stupid, I admit." I paced, my feet thumping on the worn rug. "You let me live with that hatred for 38 years. Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." I stared at the wall. There was a photograph of my father in uniform. He'd been in the National Guard for a short while. I felt a swirl of emotions. No tears came. Finally, I turned to her. "I accept that you did what you thought was right, but I won't forgive it." She bowed her head, silent. I left without another word. The following weeks, I set about dismantling my old life. I filed the divorce papers, arranged for a temporary lease near downtown. I told my daughter she could always visit me, that none of this was her fault. She cried, but tried to be strong. I gave her a hug, told her I'd always be her father. As for Laura, we barely spoke. She asked if we could see a counselor, try to fix things. I said no. Finally, the day came when the movers arrived to take my boxes to the new place. Laura stood by the kitchen window, hugging herself. I loaded the last box, turned to face her. She whispered, "Is there anything left to say?" I was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I hope you learn from this. I hope you find peace." And I walked out. The weeks that followed were a blur. New apartment, new routines, emptiness that weighed on me like lead. But the strangest sensation was relief. I didn't want to carry anyone's secrets anymore. One evening, I sat in my sparse living room. No pictures on the walls, no sign of family except a single photograph of my daughter on a small side table. The lamp overhead flickered. The city lights blinked through the window. I sipped a glass of cheap whiskey, letting the warmth fill my chest. I thought about my father. In that moment, I realized something. Not every pain is visible. It burrows deep, devouring you from the inside, until you kill it, or it kills you. I'd spent a lifetime letting lies define me. No more. I inhaled. Steady. The black humor returned, a grin tugging at my lips. "Here's to you, Dad. Dying a drunk, while I lived a fool." I raised my glass in a silent toast to the man I never knew. Some nights, I fantasized about revenge. Real, punishing revenge. I pictured calling Daniel, leading him into a trap, beating him within an inch of his life. I pictured humiliating Laura publicly, exposing her affair. I pictured spitting on my mother's porch, telling her to burn in her regrets. But in the end, I did none of it. My revenge was simpler. I let them live with themselves. Let them choke on guilt. Let them face the emptiness left behind. One day, Daniel tried to call me. I recognized the number. For a wild second, I considered picking up, letting him know exactly what I thought. Then I rejected the call. I blocked his number. He'd fade into oblivion. I found black humor in that too. Fortune favors the bold. I imagined him saying, "Until it doesn't." Late one night, I visited the old house. I parked on the street, killed the headlights, and watched from afar. A lamp glowed in the living room. Through the window, I saw Laura pacing, phone pressed to her ear. She looked agitated, maybe struggling with bills or the thousand small details of daily life without me. I felt an odd calm, not happiness, just a sense that I was no longer carrying her secrets. The finality was absolute. A month later, the divorce was finalized. I didn't ask for the house, just a fair share of what we owned. Our daughter would split her time between us. Laura tried to speak to me at the courthouse, but I turned away. I had nothing left to say. I drove home alone, a legally single man at 45. The city lights flickered on the horizon. Car horns blared in the distance. I turned the radio on, flipping through stations until I found an old country track, the kind my father might have hummed. My mind wandered to how life might have been if he returned, if my mother had told the truth, if Laura had never strayed. But if doesn't matter in a life governed by reality. That night, in my empty apartment, I laid on a worn couch, the overhead bulb flicking uncertainly. I let my eyes close. Scenes flashed behind my eyelids. My father carrying me on his shoulders when I was small. Laura in her wedding gown, smiling up at me. Daniel's silhouette in my bedroom. The look in my daughter's eyes when she realized our family was breaking. I felt a surge of pain, but it was distant now, muted. I got up, walked to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror. Water trickled from the faucet as I washed my hands. My reflection was quiet, calm. I was no longer the same man who'd lived under illusions. I dried my hands, flicked off the light. Time passed, and I sank into a new existence. I attended mandatory parenting mediation sessions with Laura, so we could manage custody. We sat in a dull, gray office, a counselor guiding the conversation. Laura spoke in a subdued tone, referencing scheduling conflicts, holiday plans. She never once pleaded for reconciliation, and I never offered it. The tension was thick, but I kept my words measured. She cast a few sorrowful glances my way. I stared at the floor or the counselor's desk. When the session ended, she hesitated in the hallway, as if wanting to say something. I walked on without looking back. Eventually, I reached a day when the quiet no longer felt suffocating. It simply was. The outside world moved on. My mother sent me letters, telling me she was sorry, asking forgiveness. I burned them without reading. Let her stew in her own regrets. That was my final vengeance there. My daughter came over every other weekend, and I made the best of it, cooking dinners she liked, renting old mystery flicks. She seemed to relax in my presence, though I caught flashes of sadness in her eyes. She missed the family we'd been. But she was strong, determined not to let this break her. One rainy evening, I sat at my desk at the new apartment, sifting through old documents. I found the letters from my father that I'd salvage. In them, he talked about building a future for me, about returning to us once he got stable work. The final lines from the last letter were scrawled in shaky handwriting. I love you, son. I'll be back soon. I allowed myself a brief moment of mourning. Then, carefully, I tucked them away. The old pain was still there, but it felt more like a scar now, closed but sensitive. Word reached me through a mutual friend that Daniel had landed a new contract in another state. He'd be leaving Chicago. I felt an odd satisfaction. Let him run somewhere else, out of sight. He was just a footnote in my life now. I didn't see Laura except for custody exchanges. We met at a neutral spot, a coffee shop near the highway. She'd order a coffee. I'd sit down with a bottle of water. Our daughter would stand between us, gazing back and forth. The air always felt heavy. One such exchange, Laura arrived alone, our daughter already at my place. She said, "Mind if I sit?" I shrugged. She sat across from me, took a cautious sip of her latte, eyes averted. Then she murmured, "I'm going to counseling now. By myself. I'm trying to figure out where I went wrong." I stared at the coffee cup between her hands. My voice was quiet. "It's a long road." She nodded. "I know." We didn't speak again. I finished my water, stood up, left. At home, I tried to reflect on my own path. The black humor still bubbled sometimes, especially when I thought about the father fiasco or the fiasco with Daniel. But I felt a new kind of acceptance. I'd survived, battered but alive. One night, about a year after I first opened that bedroom door, I found myself driving along a lonely stretch of road outside the city. The sky was overcast, no stars visible. My headlights carved two pale beams into the darkness. The radio played a mournful tune, and I felt a pull in my chest. I stopped the car near a clearing, got out, and listened to the soft hum of insects in the grass. In that stillness, I let out a deep breath. My mind drifted to my father's final drive. Maybe he was on a road like this, moonless, feeling lost and alone. Maybe he had a moment of regret before the accident. I whispered, "I don't blame you anymore." The wind rustled through the trees. For a brief instant, I felt as though something deep within me finally exhaled. The old anger was gone. As for Laura, sometimes I caught glimpses of her on social media, pictures with her friends, a faint smile, eyes still carrying hints of sadness. I never reached out. Our story was done. The final night I saw her in person was at our daughter's high school ceremony. Parents crowded the auditorium, cameras flashing. I stood at the back, arms folded. She walked in, spotted me, offered a tentative wave. I nodded, half acknowledging her. We both watched our daughter receive some recognition for academic excellence. Applause rang out. I felt pride swell in my chest. Afterwards, our daughter hurried up, hugging me, then hugging her mother. We exchanged pleasantries, said how proud we were. We parted with minimal words. That was it. A microcosm of civility. Now, in my modest apartment, the walls are no longer bare. I've hung a few photos, just me and my daughter, mostly. A new job offer came in at a different logistics firm, and I took it, forging a fresh path. I found a decent routine that keeps me busy. The memory of betrayal is there, but it doesn't devour me. Sometimes, late at night, I still remember the smell of those sheets, her perfume mingled with someone else's sweat, a nauseating memory. Then I laugh quietly, a bitter echo in the darkness. Not every scar is visible, but I wear them anyway. I stand by the window, city lights glimmering below. Life moves on. I have a chance to live honestly now, without illusions. That's enough. I pour myself one last drink, raise the glass in a silent toast. To Dad, to the lies that died, and to the future that's mine. I down it, swallow the burn, and then I turn off the light.